Hello and welcome to Vergecast, the flagship podcast of buying a $27 million mansion that sucks. We're going to get to it. We're going to explain that idea in detail. It is very good. It is also just a tiny little symbol of the moment that we live in now. What if we didn't think this through? And then spent $27 million anyway. And then blamed everyone else. It's all right there. I'm not going to tell you yet. It's all right there. I'm your friend Neeli. David Pierce is here.
Hi. I also very much enjoy that story. I was putting together the rundown for today, and one of the nice things about putting together the rundown is I get to just decide in the lightning round what I want, and I put my name next to it in bold with great enthusiasm. And it is one of those things. I love a thing that's a metaphor for something, but you don't know what, but it is for sure a metaphor.
Yeah, like a vibes of four.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. That's right.
It's just like, oh, this story is the correct vibe for this moment in America.
Yeah.
Alex Kranz is here.
Yeah, I don't own a house, but if I did, it wouldn't be that one for a variety of reasons.
All right, there's a lot to talk about. The Apple betas came out this week. We've got what David is calling an Is This Anything Gadget Bonanza, and then we got the lightning round. Unsponsored. At this point, someone should start a company called Unsponsored. Just putting that out there.
That's pretty good.
But we should start with what is arguably the biggest story in the world, which is the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, and then the RNC in which Trump was nominated and announced J.D. Vance as his running mate, as the vice presidential nominee. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. It feels important to talk about. It is the biggest story in the world, and there are lots of Verge stories in this story. For example, I think as we learn more about the would-be assassin, who was 20 years old, it feels likely that his digital footprint will reveal a bunch. And that means things like hacking his phone were immediately important. We've talked a lot about cops trying to hack phones on this show and on The Verge over the years, and they got into it almost immediately. And that's because they've just gotten good at it. The FBI isn't running to Apple to ask them to break the phone open. So there's that sort of stuff happening as that investigation goes forward. More immediately important in the context of The Verge and the Vergecast is what happened to the social networks afterwards. We've talked a lot about content moderation on the show and whether or not social networks have a duty to the truth. Mark Zuckerberg has famously said he doesn't want to be the arbiter of truth and set up a weird fake Supreme Court for content moderation on Facebook platforms. We're at a place now where they appear to have given up, right? Like you would put COVID at sort of the high point of content moderation controversies and discussion and interest from the platforms.
Maybe not in terms of success, but certainly in terms of volume.
Yeah,
right? Like
emphasis.
it was the moment everyone was most aggressively like on it one way or another.
Yeah. And whether, like, are you going to amplify conspiracy theories? And there was just a lot there that has resulted in major lawsuits. And one of them just hit the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, no, the government's allowed to talk to the social networks. Like, all of that happened. And it feels like it's in the past. And we've been sort of talking about it. But then the shooting happened. And you just saw in real time the social networks, Twitter, X, whatever it's called, Threads, they were good at it for 1 second. They were like, this thing happened, and here's video of it, and here's some photos of it, and here's everyone just reacting to it for like 1 second. You could verify that a thing had happened, and they were ahead of the major news networks, which are very, very cautious in breaking news events like that. So if you just wanted a shot of pure adrenaline, they would give it to you.
Well, and this was actually an unusually perfect case in that sense because you had a televised event, right? Like he's on stage talking as all of this is happening. Like the person this is happening to is right there in front of a camera. You have what turned out to be some like truly historic photographers out there working, taking shots that ended up being really important really quickly. And that stuff gets uploaded faster than ever. So we had this like primary source material faster and more sort of remarkably than almost anything I can ever remember. Like the speed with which what you would call like the photo of the thing started floating around the internet was just unbelievable to me.
It was like seconds.
Yeah.
And it just was there. And then you saw the sort of like weird, everyone quoting the like CNN or New York Times headline that was more cautious than the rush to judgment on the social networks and be like, why? It's like the big networks are cautious. The rigor is the point. And like there's a gap here. And that gap has only gotten wider, which is utterly fascinating to me. There's no attempt to moderate pictures of a shooting. Like a guy got shot and there's pictures of it everywhere and there's no attempt to moderate it. On top of that, there is just, an explosion of conspiracy theories from everyone. Everyone is a conspiracy theorist right now. And they're all just like flooding onto these platforms, particularly X. And there's no attempt to slow it down or fact check it or anything like that. And you can just see like, oh, the knob got turned. We're just not doing content moderation anymore. Like we don't care about this. We're going to do the really bad stuff. You talk to people who are still working in the industry, right? They're going to continue working against child sexual abuse material or just like abject pornography on platforms that aren't supposed to have it. They will all, for forever and ever, copyright infringement will be a thing that the platforms care about. But they're just like over it, right? The idea that harmful information can spread on social networks and that the platforms have any responsibility, it's gone. I think this one's a marker. Like it feels like a real marker to me that that's where the information environment is now. And for all the other stuff we talk about, like AI or sludge or fake photos, yeah, it all happened immediately after this event, and nothing happened.
You know what I think a lot about in these events now is the sort of public turn Mark Zuckerberg made over the last several years, where he went from being the guy who was talking really earnestly about how hard Meta and Facebook in particular was trying with content moderation, and saying true things like the reason we get so much crap for this is because we're the ones trying the hardest and the most transparently. Like, I think that's basically true. And he eventually was just like, you know what, this is actually not worth it. Like, all I'm doing is signing myself up to get yelled at. I'm going to go back to posting about new WhatsApp features and cool stuff in the metaverse. And I'm going to go back to being the product guy. And Nick Clegg, who nobody cares about, gets to be the one who talks about content moderation. And I think that is, to me, is so indicative of how we've gotten to this place of like, it's somewhere between like resignation and nihilism, where there is a sense that this isn't going to get better. So why even try? And what does better even look like? Because no one agrees on what it's supposed to be anymore. So it just feels like at some point, the only like rational thing to do is just throw up your hands and be like, you know, whatever, you guys do whatever you want, I'm out. And it really, really feels like that's where everyone has landed.
Yeah, it's a value proposition, right? Like there is no value in content moderation for them at this point. In maintaining that theater of content moderation. The value is just vastly diminished over the last few years. So it's like, okay, I don't need to do it anymore. I can move on to other stuff. And we've seen that in a lot of things, a lot of these kind of theatrical moments, particularly in big tech, where they're like, oh yeah, we care about being good. We care about doing all these things. They no longer have to. They realized that actually doesn't net them as much as they thought it would. And so they've just kind of said, nah, never mind.
Yeah, it's just fascinating to me because, you know, the immediate reaction from everyone was like, tone down the rhetoric, be good to each other, we're all Americans. And then a day later, all of the social platforms are flooded with conspiracy theories. My favorite one is the shooter was in a video that was an ad for BlackRock, which is a private equity company that is an investor in like gun companies. And they did something at a school, and he was like in the background of a video that they did about the teacher at the school. And so now there's a BlackRock conspiracy theory.
Okay.
And it's like, even that is like, fine. You should be able to post that to social media, like whatever. You want to have some wackadoo like idea, but you look at Twitter and it's like, because of the volume and because Twitter has driven away so many otherwise sane people, or X has driven away so many other, it's not just like sort of conventional wisdom, right? And it's like, oh, this is the stuff that actually poisons the discourse, right? This is a thing that actually makes it harder to bring people together and actually creates the social division. And the platforms have basically given up. You can see it on TikTok too in a very different way, right? It's just people yelling at each other all day about this and like insisting that one side or the other has it out for each other. And the platforms have basically given up trying to stop it. And it's an election year, it's bound to be polarized. But to me, that's the big Verge story here is there was a moment several years ago when the platforms really wanted to like create healthy conversations. That was Twitter's metric. And now they're over it. You know, and like Meta is like, Threads is a place for conversations, and what that amounts to is people just asking questions where they appear to be idiots, so people will yell at them for engagement all day long.
Yep.
Like everyone's like people on like you open threads and like every third post is someone's like, I just took a bite of an orange without taking the peel off. Did you know that that's bad? And it's like, what the fuck? like truly, what are you talking about?
I posted on Threads the other day that Amazon is a terrible website because Amazon is a terrible website. And I had a bunch of people accuse me of engagement bait for it, which I really enjoyed. It's the first time in a while I've been accused of engagement bait, and it made me very happy.
Threads is the first platform that has completely decentivized people from asking questions. Because no matter what, you seem like you're Jason Clout. Mm-hmm. It's very good.
It's good stuff. But no, I think to your point about the like matching all of that sort of giving up on content moderation with the fact that what like the FBI does immediately is try to get into the shooter's phone is like it's both getting worse and higher stakes all the time, right? And so much of what we've been seeing over the last few days is like Discord released a statement that the shooter had a Discord account. Like that is news that he was on Discord. And there's been this weird back and forth on whether there was some kind of like not manifesto, but like hint as to what was coming on a Steam account that seems like it was and it wasn't. So, and so we're in this place where it's like this stuff matters more than ever as they try to figure out what happened. And yet the ability to figure out what is actually going on feels like it's getting further and further away from us.
Yeah. And especially if you're just a normal person who's just opening an app on their phone.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's that. We're going to cover a lot of that. It seems important. I'll give you one other example, which is just a very Neil example. These photos that we're all talking about, those photos were taken by professional photographers who are in the pit, who get paid to do a job with very expensive cameras. People have started arguing about the settings of the cameras, by the way, which is very nerdy, a thing to do online. Those photos are owned. They have, they're copyrighted images. One of them is owned by the New York Times. I think the other one's owned by the AP. They're everywhere. There's just straight copyright infringement. All that merch you're seeing, the hats with the photos on them, just straightforward copyright infringement. The photo agencies and the Times and all those other companies, they're going to have to issue a bunch of takedowns. We went out and asked them, and basically all of them were like, we are evaluating our options. Weird. Like that photo feels like it immediately belongs to the world, right? But it super doesn't.
Well, and in part, it feels that way because all of these other machines move so much faster than the lawyers for those news organizations, right? Like the Etsy's popular page was filled with that kind of merch that you're talking about. Yeah. Like Amazon has a thing that you can print on demand. Like literally all you have to do is upload a photo to Amazon and boom, you're selling merch. Like it is crazy how quickly that stuff is able to happen now. And it's happening faster in every other part of the system than like within these organizations that are actually trying to figure out what to do about it. And so they all figure, I'm going to make my money. I'm going to sell my t-shirts and I'm going to get out before anybody else has even like figured out what their first move is.
And I would just wrap this up. We spent a lot of time talking AI, and boy, do I get the emails when we talk about AI and hint even a little bit that AI might be useful or interesting, right? That it's stealing work, that it's stealing creativity. If you have those feelings about the AI companies, and you can and should, I won't stop you. How do you feel about someone whose job it is to stand in a place where you might get shot at, take some of the most historic photos in the world, and immediately watch that stuff get stolen by very opportunistic merch vendors on Amazon? Is that bad? Like maybe, but I don't think anybody has the same immediate reaction to it the way that I know they do when we talk about OpenAI. Totally. Like there's something there that's weird. We spend a lot of time talking about how copyright law is the only functional regulation on the internet because it's effectively a speech regulation. And you're about to see it used as in a way that feels very much like a speech regulation. You want to sell a hat with this photo on it? Some photo agency is going to come and tell you that you can't. And like reckoning with that it's right next to the content moderation question, because a lot of people are going to lose their minds because they feel like that photo belongs to the world or those photos belong to the world. Anyway, lots of Verge stories there. I'm confident. You remember the Shepherd Ferry picture of Obama? Mm-hmm. We covered the copyright case around that photo of Obama for like 10 years. And we did a story on it like 6 months ago. It's going to be that again, right? Just like, what does it mean for these images to exist on the internet in the way they do, and who gets to make money on them is like kind of one question. And the second question is like, That is content moderation, and the content moderation apparatus of our information environment it's in a, I think as Alex was saying, like in a pretty nihilistic space.
Yeah.
like you have to make sure there's not the worst thing. You clear that bar, it's like a free for all.
Yep.
All right, so that is that event. Immediately thereafter, there was a Republican National Convention this week. It was not a quiet week for politics in America.
President Biden has COVID. It's like chill times all around.
Yeah. Not a quiet week by any stretch of imagination. The only news out of the RNC that's worth talking about is Trump picked J.D. Vance, who's a senator from Ohio, as his running mate, his vice presidential nominee. And then 1 million people in tech came out in support of Trump. Elon Musk, the Andreessen Horowitz partners, Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, just like down every crypto bro you can think of is pro-Trump. They love J.D. Vance, who was a venture capitalist, took a lot of money from Peter Thiel over the years. There's just a reactionary right-wing crypto bro situation there. There it is. We will cover it more. We don't want to talk a lot about it in the Vergecast now. I want to make sure we do some like reporting on it.
Yeah.
But J.D. Vance is a really interesting character, and I don't mean that in the like you should read his book, which is bad. I mean that in the it's not good. And the movie's worse. I mean that in the malleability of his positions is really interesting. His relationship to the power of big tech is interesting. He was just at a conference that Aaron Lauren Feiner was at called Remedy Fest, where he said, I think Lena Khan's doing a good job. Why does he think Lena Khan's doing a good job? Because he thinks they should break up Google. Why does he want to break up Google? So he can push weird right-wing conspiracies on the internet. Like you start at, oh, we agree, and then you like drill down and it's like, oh, the flow of information is not going the way that some of these people want. So we will use the power of the state to like break these companies up. And you just like end up in this like total horseshoe theory, strange bedfellows moment. So we're going to cover a lot of that. I'm just warning the Vergecast listener, like it's coming because it's so much. There's so much weird Mark Andreessen, Peter Thiel, crypto tech money now involved in this presidential election that it's impossible for us not to cover it.
Yeah, because Peter Thiel famously stayed out of the last one, right?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, he said he was.
He said he would. Yeah.
It's out of control. All right. I'm like a cranky Gen Xer. You can imagine how I feel about this entire situation, but here it is. Anyway, iOS 18 betas.
They're out. They're here. Out. No, David's been checking a bunch of them out. Like, David, you risked your phone. You took the hit for the rest of us.
Yeah, I started with the iPad because I was like, that's safe. It's just an iPad. I have thousands of them. What could possibly go wrong? And now somehow I'm running iPad OS 18, iOS 18, Mac OS Sequoia, and the new TV OS. Like, how is this my life? Everything is broken. My batteries have just absolutely gone to hell. But I get to use the cool new stuff. It's fine. It's a trade. I will say the single most important thing that has happened to me in my technology life this year, I'm not exaggerating, is having RCS on the iPhone.
Well, it's like saving your marriage, right?
Like literally. My wife uses an Android phone. She's a Pixel Bro for life, and steadfastly refuses to understand that when she sends me a video, it looks like a potato every single time. So like what will happen is the woman who runs our daycare will send Anna a adorable video of my child, and Anna will forward it to me, and I literally can't see it because it's just 8 pixels stacked that sort of looks like blonde hair. Like that's just all it is.
Yeah.
But now I have RCS. The photos are big. The videos are big. Like it works correctly. I don't have to like make her send me Google Photos links anymore. It's the best. And it's like a little wonky and it falls back to SMS too often. It's getting better as time goes on. I think like the networks and the carriers are all kind of figuring it out. But RCS on iPhone, like huge win. And to all the people who have been in my mentions telling me like, oh, you silly Americans, we all use WhatsApp. First of all, congratulations. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Great job. Second of all, making people switch messaging apps is impossible. It's just, I don't care what messaging app you use. Try your best to get all your friends and family to use a different one. Just try. Best of luck. It's not going to work, no matter what it is that you use. And so for us here in the good old US of A, we're stuck with text messaging. So anything that makes text messaging slightly better, humongous victory.
I'm excited for this to roll out wide and for people to, how do I put this? I'm excited to see if when RCS rolls out wide with iOS 18, if the green bubble stigma reduces.
Yeah.
I actually think it's going to. I really do.
You do?
I do, because the main things that it improves are, what I haven't done is like really stress test group chats with this. So that is like the main problem, right? So I'll have to see how that does. But the ability to get read receipts and the ability to send high res images and videos and the typing indicators. Those are like the three things that immediately my messaging system with my wife got better. Also, the tap backs work a little better, but now that you can use any emoji, it's still kind of wonky on the Android side, because if you use one that it doesn't recognize, it just punts it through as a text message. But it's not all the way better, and there's all the new iMessage stuff, the like animations and the text decorations and all that you can do that you still can't do in Android, but it's much closer. And I think it's not going to get all the way better, but I think it's going to get a little better.
Is this going to work in messages on a Mac?
Yes, I have been RCSing from my Mac, but only because
it's linked to your
just
phone.
Forwarding to your phone.
Does it break as often as, like, I feel like when you're just text messaging, it breaks all the time.
It was actually worse at first. Like when I first downloaded all the betas, it was really slow and was occasionally just failing to send messages at all. But in the last, I would say, week, it's been super stable. So I have high hopes for where this is going to land, but it was definitely wonky at first.
All right. We won't have to do endless follow-up once this hits wide, if people like it.
Yeah.
You even tried the phone mirroring on the Mac too? That seems amazing.
It is.
Oh boy.
It is and it
That was
isn't.
a big
Like, it
sigh.
is because it works, right? It's like continuity camera in the sense that like it just mostly does the thing, and every once in a while it doesn't for some indiscernible reason. Like Liam, our producer, we were on a call the other day, and he just for the whole call couldn't get continuity camera to work. And then like the next time you tried, it works. And phone mirroring is a little like that. But the biggest problem is you can't change the size of the window. So if you're on a laptop screen, it shows up like relatively close to kind of real size of your iPhone, which I think is what they were going for. But if you're on a big, densely pixeled display, it shows up teeny tiny. So like I'm on a 27-inch screen here, and the iPhone on my screen is like half the size of my actual iPhone, and there's nothing I can do about it, and it drives me nuts.
That is great. I'm sorry. That's great. And it's like, I know that's like a beta bug. Like they have to know, and they'll do something. But
Just
it's
let me
actually
resize
just,
the window.
It's
Like,
just hilarious.
We solved it's such a stage manager problem where they're like, what if we give you a new way to do window? Like, no, let me drag the corner of my window to make it bigger. This is not complicated.
It's very good. You don't have a touchscreen on a Mac, so does it like do the...
If you have the Magic Mouse or the Magic Trackpad, it's great. It just like maps all the gestures the same way. You swipe and you scroll and everything else. I use a Logitech mouse, and it's basically unusable. You like click on the bar at the bottom to go to the home screen. Some things will scroll, some things don't scroll. You can't scroll left and right. Like, so on Instagram, if there's a gallery, I just can't do it. I think some of these things will probably get better over time. I also think Apple, it's like on a laptop, it's solid, right? Because you have the trackpad, you have the gestures, it all works fine. But Apple is just not interested in you if you don't use exclusively Apple gear. And so I think this is like for all of us Logitech fans out there, this is going to be problematic.
Yeah, I was about to say this is kind of common for all Apple integrations on the computer. You're just like, okay, cool. I can't do any of this unless I buy a Magic Trackpad, and then I have to use that instead of a really good mouse. I don't want to.
Yeah, pretty much. I hate the Magic Trackpad. Like, I know there are a lot of people out there who really like it. I hate it.
Yeah.
Like, I get the idea of it, but because it's so far away from the screen, it's so divorced from what's actually going on that it feels like it's trying way too hard. And it feels bad at the angle my hands are at all the time. I hate it.
No, I can't stand it. That's why I use a trackball, because the trackball, you can sometimes set like a key, so you can still get a lot of the gestures in by like hitting a key and using the ball. But with the regular mouse, you're just like, well, I guess I don't horizontal scroll ever again. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, can't do it. I'm out.
I can't wait to try this with a tiny little phone monkeying with a mouse.
Oh, it's going to be great.
Just truly for me, I suspect There are going to be lots of little things people do with it. Like for me, like the one I wrote about in the story is my thermostat only works as a mobile app. So just being able to like fire that up from my laptop is really handy without getting my phone out of my bag or whatever. But truly for me, it's just going to be a way to drag and drop things from my computer to my phone and vice versa. Like it just solves the AirPlay problem of I have a photo here and I need it to be over here. And it's easier and faster. And that feature's not out yet, but it's apparently coming. And just as a drag and drop machine, I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. You got to get Homebridge, dude.
No.
I'm telling you. You need a little Raspberry Pi that just bridges your thermostat into HomeKit.
You'll be great. Then you get Home Assistant to also be a bridge into HomeKit.
We could do this for you. Alex and I are waiting.
Yeah, we're here. We're coming down.
We can put a little Tamagotchi Homebridge server in your house.
I'm stuck at trying to get a lock for my front door that I can open with my fingerprint. And even that, Anna's like, no. Keys are great. She's not wrong. Keys are great. Like,
somebody like hawks a loogie on it, and you're just like, I guess I don't get in my house ever
exactly.
again.
Once you get to, you can unlock this door by beeping your phone at it. Then the flip is, my wife is like, I don't ever want to see again a key. I don't ever want to see a key again in my life. Don't you dare. That's not a choice
I need
we
that.
have.
We need Becky and Anna to hang out. Can we make this happen?
We were test driving a Rivian. So next week on Decoder, it's a CEO Rivian, RJ Scringe. And so we had a Rivian to test drive. And they didn't give us the keys. Rivians do come with a regular key fob, but they just gave us the cards. And I showed them I was like, these are the keys. And she was like, no, they're not.
Just reject it.
She was just like, I'm never going to drive that car. Like, no, thanks. She's like, I don't want to know anything about that at all. Like 0% interest in your dumb key cards. All right, we got to talk about the biggest thing in the beta, which is a calculator in the iPad.
Yeah, that is it.
It's. I mean, when I think about WWDC, like what did they announce? Some bullshit, and then a calculator app for the iPad.
David,
yeah, I mean, that's basically right.
Change your life? Is it like a whole new world?
No, I confess I am slightly disappointed by the whole.
You haven't been doing like high school algebra this whole time?
Wow.
So I think Apple really thinks that if you're like a graduate student studying mathematics, that you're going to love this. And I think Apple also thinks there's like tens of millions of those people in the world. And they're wrong on both counts. But the weird thing is, so like the calculator app is fine, right? It's a calculator app. And I think it's so funny that Apple is like, we wanted to really take the time to get this right. It's like, no, dude, you shipped the calculator app and then you also made another feature. Like you could have just shipped the calculator app. It's just the calculator app with bigger buttons. I don't know how to be clearer about that. That's what it is. But the cool thing is math notes, right? And it's like, that is both. It's the thing inside of Notes where you can handwrite stuff and it'll do the equations for you. And that thing is incredible when it works, which is a lot, but also missing some sort of obvious stuff. Like you write a list of numbers and then you draw a line underneath and it'll automatically sum those numbers up for you, right? And then you can actually tap on one of the numbers and drag a slider to make the number go up and down. Super cool. And it attempts to do it in your handwriting, which failed spectacularly for me. But I think that's just because my handwriting is so bad, it's like borderline unreadable. I've talked to some other people with pretty good handwriting, and they've said it works much better. So your mileage, I think, will vary depending on your handwriting. But there's just little things. So, right. So like one of the use cases I've heard a bunch is like you're totaling up expenses for a weekend, right? I'm in the middle of planning vacation and we're trying to like total how much everything is going to cost. So you write a bunch of numbers down, it'll total them all up for you. But then if you go next to it and you write like food : next to the, $225, the whole thing falls apart. It just like doesn't understand what your equation is anymore, and it won't total anything up for you. So it's like you have to operate under these very like specific confines of what it understands as an equation. Ooh. And it's awesome. And as long as you do that, so this is what I mean by like graduate math, right? Like if you're sitting there doing math problems as math problems, it's awesome and it works really well. But if you're like a person taking notes and you want to do math inside of them, it doesn't work quite as well. Does that make sense?
So it's for like just kids who have homework.
It's for doing math. Like like that really is what it is. It's like what I want it to be is like do the math inside of my notes as I take notes. And it is not for that. It's for doing math problems.
Do you think that the iPad Pro is now going to become to like mathematicians and scientists what the iPad Mini was to pilots.
I need to write this story. I am so convinced that this pilot thing is a lie. And I have no evidence for this, but I'm so sure that like 3 Delta pilots got iPad minis, and then Apple was like, yes, this is it. Because every time I fly, they're still bringing on briefcases full of paperwork. Like if this got replaced by iPads, I don't know where it is. But anyway, all that aside, I do think Apple really, 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 really wants the iPad to be an education device. Like I think the way that a whole generation grew up with Macs in the classroom, and basically the generations recently have grown up with Chromebooks, Apple is like desperate for that thing to be iPads. And I think it sees the Pencil in particular as a way to get there. I don't necessarily know if it's going to work. I'm also not the target demo, so I don't know. Yeah. But like it's very clear that is like even going back and looking at the demos, they're doing really sophisticated math, like not the kind of thing that a normal person does in their day-to-day life. And I think for the sophisticated stuff, it works better than for just like trying to make sense of my notes.
I'm going to miss Texas Instruments when the TI-83 gets killed by the iPad Pro.
There's a store in my little town. I'm not sure if they make any money selling anything other than TI-83s to high schoolers. Like they just have a wall of TI-83s, and then all the high schoolers in town go to that store to buy their TI-83. And it's just so confusing. The whole thing is confusing to me, especially because when I was in high school 20 years ago, we were using TI-83s.
Yeah.
25 years ago, we were using...
Is that the most enduring technology like of the last 2 decades?
I feel like it is.
Here's what I learned about the TI-82. The 83 was different. The case of a TI-82, the shell, was exactly the right size to fit a Game Boy Pocket. So you could just slide a Game Boy Pocket up into that shell. And the thing that we had to figure out was how to hide the sound, the Game Boy, ding.
Your teacher's like, gosh, Neil's really doing some calculations over there.
We were furiously
we were just fully playing Game Boy in the back of that.
He is mathing so hard, his parents are going to be so proud.
But the problem was you had to turn it on before we walked in, because you can't shut off the startup beep of the Game Boy Pocket.
Yeah.
Ding. Definitely not caught at least once. All right, 2 other Apple things I want to talk about. One, very, very funny. Apple has partnered with Taboola to put ads in Apple News. You don't know what Taboola is, except you obviously do. It's the chumbox provider on every website in the world, including our own. We don't like it, but we don't work for free. So there's some Taboola ads at the bottom of our pages. They make our company some money, and then they pay the bills.
It's famously the belly fat ads, right? Like for years, that was who was serving the belly fat
and
ads.
we've written stories about the belly fat ads. I think it was Caitlin Tiffany wrote a story for us that like chased all the way down what the one weird vegetable is.
Oh, no way.
It's corn. It's nonsensical.
Yeah.
All bad, but Apple doesn't want to do ads. They had a partnership with NBC to sell ads in Apple News. It didn't work. I don't think they got the scale. And now they have this partnership with Taboola, and it's like, what kind of ads are we going to see in Apple News now? And then you look, and Taboola is actually a huge company, like massive company, because they just put the garbage across the entire web.
And wait, did Taboola buy Outbrain, the other chumbox provider, or was it vice versa?
No, it didn't happen. It got broken.
Oh, it was so big it wasn't allowed.
Yeah.
The FTC said no. We must have competition in the chumbox industry.
I can't believe we didn't do features on chumbox warfare.
Oh my God.
Anyhow, very bad. One of the least on brand deals in Apple history.
Yeah.
And I think they're gonna keep it, because what are you gonna do? I think Apple's at the what are you gonna do phase of this, where they were just like, yeah, whatever, it's money. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go somewhere else? You're gonna not read Apple News? The publishers are you're gonna respond to chumboxes and Apple. Well, look at your sites, and I think they're just gonna take the money. There's no way that, unless it's like egregiously bad, which with Taboola it could be egregiously bad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a weird deal for them all the way around. Like people reacted to it so negatively, and I don't think they give a shit.
Yeah,
Well,
I think that's right.
It's just Apple being a content creator, right? Like they're in the industry of content now in a way they haven't been for a long time, and this is just like finalizing the form for that.
Yeah, it's just if you think about Apple's pitch to everyone,
this is not it. This is like
right. It's like this is the premium experience. This is trusted publishers. It's not just garbage and then or taboola ads.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what endlessly chasing services revenue eventually leads you to, right? Like it just gets uglier and uglier as time goes on because you have to keep finding ways to turn pennies into dollars and turn free things into pennies. And it sucks. And like this is going to go in the news app. It's going to go in the stocks app. Like Apple has gotten slowly sort of frog boilingly aggressive about advertising all over iOS. And this just feels like this will not be the last thing we see from Apple with ugly ads, I don't think.
But don't worry, David, because in just 7 days, you too can lose 7 inches off your waistline.
But not if you eat corn.
Stay away from corn.
The one vegetable you have
supplement.
to avoid. Why don't we hawk supplements? We could be doing the show on a boat. The other piece of Apple news, much more. I don't think we're ever going to hawk supplements. Like you all know that I want a boat, but there's a line, and that's it. The lightning round remains unsponsored. I'll just
if you want to buy Neeli a boat called Supplements, though, that's pretty funny, and I will allow that.
Still on the table. That's still on the table.
And there's one last piece of Apple news which I think is really interesting and sort of like in a tangential way related, which is the sort of competitive pressure put on the App Store by the DMA and the EU and by emulators means that Apple has now approved the first like 90s PC emulator for iOS. So it's UTM SC. It can run Windows XP. That looks like Windows XP, Mac OS X, and Linux. If you want to run Linux on your phone, which I think you do. They rejected it. It was going to go into Alt Store, and then Apple approved it. And you can see just that competitive dynamic occurring where they do not want the other store to be good.
Yep.
So they are loosening the rules of their own store over and over again, and that competition is working.
It rules.
I think it was Riley Testett who runs Alt Store and does Delta and has been on this show a couple of times. I think it was him that posted basically, it turns out the best way to get your app onto the App Store is to threaten to be on Alt Store.
That's exactly. Yeah, he did.
It's true. Like it is real that like it is increasingly clear that if you want to get something onto an iPhone, there are going to be other ways to do it. And Apple is so desperate to keep you in the App Store that it will bend its rules in any direction it has to keep you there. I believe I owe somebody some money because I said on this show not that long ago, I would be shocked if we got a full PC emulator. Because Apple's rules have been very clear that it is like it's for retro games, right? Like that was clearly what Apple wanted these things to be for. So this strikes me as yet another goalpost move that I didn't even expect for what Apple will allow.
Is it a PC emulator? It's XP.
Well,
so UTM will let you emulate all the way up through Windows 11. Okay. So I have not tried it in the app, so I don't actually know what's possible. I know. But
Wes Davis was trying out XP, and it took him like 2 hours to install it.
Yeah, these things are not easy. But like you can emulate an x86 PC. Like I think with some work, there's probably a lot more you can do here than gets credit for. Also, you could emulate XP and then emulate a Windows 11 computer with an emulator on Windows XP. Just turtles all the way down this bitch. Yeah.
Yes. Hell yes.
So what I think is interesting. So there's a reason they've not wanted like general purpose computer emulators because they don't want people to run apps on them. Right. Yeah. Like that. It's a big, complicated loophole, but it's a loophole, right? Yeah. You put a general purpose PC emulator on the phone and then anyone can just run whatever software they want without paying Apple 30%. Not a loophole that Apple will allow. But now they've allowed it. And what's fascinating to me about this is like maybe on the phone this isn't such a big deal because whatever, it's a phone. An iPad running Mac OS 9 or even Windows XP is like, wait, does this rule? Like, is that... I did a lot of work in Mac OS 9. I like many things happened in my life in the context of Mac OS 9. Like, yeah, I'll just run Mac OS 9 in my head all day. It has better multitasking than the iPad does today.
Yeah, that's real.
More customization too.
Yeah. The apps don't just quit
green.
in the background on you all the time in Mac OS 9. Windows XP actually has technically more advanced multitasking than Mac OS 9. So it's just like you just like find yourself running in this circle where you're like, wait, does the window management and multitasking of an emulated operating system from 20 years ago, is that a better iPad experience?
I mean, it honestly might be. Do you think we're going to get to the point where you can emulate a Mac on your iPhone and then mirror your phone to that Mac that's being emulated on your iPhone and then use that phone?
God, I hope so.
That's the dream right there.
That's the dream.
I want to use my phone 3 levels deep on my phone. That's what I'm going for here.
I think you just invented Atrix, the Motorola Atrix stuff.
Oh, man, that thing ruled. It did not.
No.
It did not. Anyway,
RIP,
I'm very excited for this emulation scene, in particular to hit the iPad, because this is the thing that Apple has feared. And if you get to a place where it's just like easy, where it's like push a button and turn your iPad into a Windows PC, and people start doing it, that's the thing that makes Apple take iPad multitasking seriously. I know we're going to get there. It just, there's a glimmer of it now, which is fascinating. Competition, it works.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break. We are just, I don't even know. We're way over. It's next week already. We'll be right back. All right, we're back with what David has called the Is This Anything Gadget Bonanza. David, what does that mean exactly?
So one of my favorite kinds of gadgets is when somebody makes something and then just sort of hands it to you and they're like, did I do anything here? Like, is this something? Do you like this? Does this solve any problems for you? And this week was an unusually good week for Is This Anything gadgets. And I mostly mean that as a compliment. I love gadgets that are like, I have a weird new idea about the future. Let's see if it works. That is like The Verge is built on those gadgets. We love that stuff. But this is an unusually weird week of Is This Anything gadgets. But first, the first one of them, it's good that we're running over already because we have a real what is a photo apocalypse to talk about here, which, Nilay, you came in real hot about this before we started recording. So we should just talk about this. There are these new Canon cameras that have a lot of AI things that have made you feel a lot of feelings.
Yeah, okay, so there's a new Canon EOS R1 and R5 Mark II. And they are some of the first cameras, especially pro cameras like this from brands like this, that just have AI features in them. And the AI features are fine. They're fine. They have noise reduction that gets you 2 more stops. So you can run the ISO a little bit hotter and the noise reduction is good. That's AI powered. And then they have 400% image upscaling, which is bananas. So if you just think about it, they've got a sensor in them. Light hits the sensor, that makes the image. The sensor is usually what determines the size of the image. Now the cameras can just make you an image that's 4 times bigger.
The image is however big you want it to be.
And it's just in the camera. And it is based on the fact that the camera knows everything about the light hitting the sensor. It knows the lens you're using. It knows the settings you're at. And so, the argument is their AI upscaling will be better in camera because it's all one closed ecosystem than if you take it out to one of the many, many, many software upscalers that exist out in the world. Weird, right? Weird to have the camera itself generate pixels that weren't there.
I mean, this is the stuff we've been talking about with smartphones for like 2 years now, right? And we're now at a point where this feels like it's about to become unavoidable. And there was a thing where it was like, okay, the like last bastion of photographic honesty is going to be these like fancy high-end cameras. And even that is going away like really, really fast.
I'm just so surprised it's Canon doing it and not like Sony or Panasonic or anybody else who's been in the mirrorless game.
This does seem like a Panasonic move. They're like, do you want our cameras now? How about this?
Yeah, right? Like Olympus. Like these companies have all been here doing mirrorless cameras for a lot longer than Canon and messing with like computational photography a lot longer than Canon. And Canon was like, nope, we're doing it now.
Yeah.
That's exactly how Canon talks, by the way.
I agree.
Thomas Cannon,
Thomas Cannon.
Just out there yelling.
So it's wonky. You got to use some Canon menus. The cameras can only do it with pictures they take in themselves. Oddly, the upscaling only works with JPEGs and HEIFs in case you're a sort of monster shooting HEIFs on your DSLR. I don't know what
I
you're
wonder
doing.
if that's an intentional choice that they're like, we have to preserve the sanctity of the raw file, but we can start to do weirder stuff with some of these other things.
Well, yeah, Canon's also always done kind of weird stuff with the regular ones, right? Like the JPEGs, they would make them warmer too. Like it was noticeably warmer on a Canon JPEG.
Yeah, I mean, like going from a RAW to a JPEG is a processing step. There's stylistic choices you can make. It is, if you have a modern DSLR and you shoot RAW at high ISOs, the pictures are going to be noisier than the JPEGs because the JPEGs have noise reduction built into them. But like that is usually taking detail out, not adding it in. And so like you're like, yeah, I personally love the AI noise removal in Lightroom. I use it all the time. I think I've said on the show, like it has changed my relationship to some of my older cameras because it's so good. But now the camera's doing it itself. And there's none, as far as I can tell, none of the AI metadata that everyone has been talking about putting into these things to indicate that some of these pixels are fake. Like the computer just made up some of these pixels. Some of these details might not have been there. Like we don't know. In the examples I've seen, it's kind of accurate, but then you're like, is that right? Like we just don't know how it's going to work in every case. And then the chain of like metadata that you would need to verify this is a real image, no, it just isn't. It just doesn't exist. And actually, we were talking about the images of the Trump shooting. Immediate AI generated images from that, AI modifications, lots and lots of weird images. They changed the Secret Service agents to smiling and like all this like crazy stuff. And all of this stuff that we have talked about for years about content authenticity, about labels, about blah, blah, it's just out the window.
Yeah, nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
It's like, none of that worked. Like,
Nope.
You're like, we're going to build in all these safeguards. Like, are you using any safeguards? It's like, no. Like, we were overwhelmed by sheer volume of crap. And so, like, it's just fascinating that Canon's putting it in the camera. Now, it is buried in the menu system of a professional Canon DSLR. It is not, the apocalypse is not totally here yet, but it's like staring us in the face.
That's kind of the thing I've been thinking about with this week is the thing you said, and I think it was around the Pixel last year, about like the question is where in the pipeline do you encounter this ability? And that ends up being really important. Like in Lightroom, that's an app you downloaded onto your computer that you brought your phone in or your photo into, and you pressed a button on purpose to do it. And that feels like one thing as opposed to having it happen, in Google Photos where your photos live, or in the app on your phone where the photos go, like the camera roll. And this goes even further to, okay, now it's a setting on your camera. What if you move it to being a button on your camera to what if you move it to just being there on your camera by default? Like where this goes from a thing I'm doing to you've just completely changed what is happening without me even being aware of it, all just feels very weird. And as soon as you move it to the device, it feels like you've shifted that threshold in a pretty meaningful way. Because now I think like what a lot of people want reasonably is to be able to just take photos off of their camera and have them be good, right? Like that's a good outcome. I don't think most people want to muck around with their photos in Lightroom. So in a certain way, it makes sense to say, okay, this thing that you're doing that we can actually do very well with AI, we're just going to do it for you because it's a good thing. But it changes that to this is now something you've done to my photos rather than something I am able to do. And it does change things.
I can't wait for the first like wedding photographer who uses this and gets a whole new like set of lace detailing on a wedding dress.
Or just like a new bridesmaid.
Yeah. There's an extra one there now. Yeah. What's up, girl?
I mean, look, the R1 is $62.99. The R5 Mark II is $42.99. If they could be like, add bridesmaid.
Yeah.
That's the money. I would pay that money.
Yeah.
Just add a bridesmaid to all of my photos.
Just a picture of your kid and a bridesmaid.
Here she is again. Different one every time. Who would have thought?
Let's go for it.
Yeah, there are professional photographers right now who have basically pushed Meta into changing the made with AI label that they're putting on Instagram. Mm-hmm. So you would export a photo from Lightroom or Photoshop. It would take some metadata that's like, you used AI to edit this image. They would put it on Instagram, and Instagram would add a label that was like made with AI when maybe all they had done was the denoise, or maybe all they had done is like a little generative fill or something like something that is becoming very commonplace where the photographers were like, no, this image is not generated with AI. I edited it with AI, and that is meaningfully different when I communicate with the audience. And Meta was like, yeah, we agree with you. That's weird. And we're just at a place where actually we might need 50 labels to explain to people what all the different things you can do. Upscaled in camera with AI.
Yeah.
Is that
Bridesmaid
meaningfully
added.
Bridesmaid added, right? Versus I typed a prompt and now here's a picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Well, which
there's
is a
a big
perfect
range
segue.
of possibilities.
It's a perfect segue into the Samsung thing that Allison Johnson wrote about this week.
It rules. I love it so much. It's so stupid.
This is the most Samsung caution to the goddamn wind.
Yes.
I can't tell if I'm mad about this or impressed or whatever.
I was mad about it reading it until you get to where like she tried to make the Loch Ness monster come out of a lake, and instead it was just a giant green bear with like super shredded green bear. And she tried to make like the Pope as a rabbit. Like she took a photo of a rabbit and tried to be like, make this the Pope in a Pope mobile. And it was just like, we're gonna put a giant rabbit head inside a car.
Okay, so just to quickly explain what's going on here.
Samsung's image generation
We're all
software
having
is
strokes on the
bizarrely woke.
Vergecast. Yeah.
Wokeness has infected Samsung Galaxy Folds, and they will not let you generate the Pope.
That's probably it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Allison Johnson is testing Samsung's new phones, the Flip 6 and the Fold 6. Nobody listened to what Neeli is saying. It's very important that you never listen to what Neeli says. And I think the Fold 6 has a feature called Sketch to Image, which is you can take a photo, draw pretty crudely a thing you want on that photo, and it will generate that thing onto your photo. So I think the first one I saw her do was it's a picture of like a harbor with a port and some flowers in the foreground, and she draws this like adorable little cartoon bee, and I guess prompts it to be out of focus. And
No, she didn't prompt it.
she didn't prompt it. Oh wow,
She didn't
just
prompt
said,
it.
"Give
She
me
just
a
drew a
bee."
bee. Yeah.
Oh, and she put it on a part of the photo that's out of focus. And so
Yeah.
it generated an out of focus bee in that spot in the photo. And if you just look at the photo, there is not a single chance in hell you would think that bee was not.
There
of the
is
photo.
there's a tiny little watermark in gray in the bottom left that says AI generated content.
If you squint.
I have looked at this photo 100 times. I hadn't seen that until just now. It's pointed it out.
It is Samsung being like, this is what I mean. I can't tell if I'm upset or I'm just impressed at the fuck it. Like, you know, like let's just do disinformation. Would you like to draw some disinformation? Not the Pope, sir, but any other thing is fine. And it is crazy. Like look at the pictures in the article. She put a ship in a harbor. It is true that she
The bear
drew
is
a
very
green,
good.
green bear. She's got a hat on a bunny. And then if you look at the picture of the hat on the bunny, the watermark is invisible. It's there. It's just totally blended in the grass. And Samsung is like, why wouldn't you just make that bigger for people? You can just crop it out. It's not in the photo.
Right.
This is what I mean by the what is a photo apocalypse. Like this is full what is a photo apocalypse. So you are giving people the tool to just generate fake imagery based on real imagery and then send it out into the world with nothing. They can just lie. And like we're gonna get to a place, I think, more quickly than people want to, where no one trusts any image. And then we're gonna have to work backwards from there. Or the alternative, which is very scary, where everyone trusts every image. But there's not gonna be like some middle ground, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't think the middle ground exists. You either just say, "Oh, sure, it's probably all real," and let the chips fall where they may, or you trust nothing.
yeah.
And trusting nothing requires a lot more work, and so I think it's actually easier to just say, "Oh, sure, it's probably real, and I'll be wrong sometimes, and that's fine." And I think like nihilism kind of leads you there in a way that's pretty scary.
I'm going to reserve my judgment on how panicked to be about this until we find out like if you can just draw abs on someone and it gives them abs.
In which case, you'd be pro.
I'd probably be con because I don't want to see a bunch of like I want the abs to be real. Like no fake abs here, only real abs. So I'm very curious to see. I asked
It's good
Allison.
to have moral boundaries, Krantz. I appreciate that about you.
Yeah, small six pack of moral
Everybody's got to have a line.
boundaries.
So and that moral boundary is shredded abs. That's it. Don't fake me out. Washboard or nothing.
Yeah.
So interestingly, Samsung is not doing this locally. The picture gets sent out to the cloud, which is where some of the content moderation seems to come in, right? Like once you go away from your phone and into a cloud server, everyone wants to take responsibility for it, which is good.
Yeah.
Tech companies taking responsibility. Unclear how long it will take over time. You know, these systems aren't being stressed yet. Data usage, power usage, all this stuff. But boy, did Samsung just be like, fine, just draw on the photo. And like, we'll just make a fake photo for you.
Yeah. You want the Loch Ness Monster? Have the Loch Ness Monster.
Or
No.
a green bear.
Or a green bear. Yeah.
All right. Is this, if you're calling it the Is This Anything Gadget Bonanza, is this anything?
This is something.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but it is something. But I would like to segue to one that is the most is this anything of anything, which is that years after Essential, the once promising Andy Rubin led phone company went away, we finally are starting to get information about the second thing they were building. There was a lot of I think at the time we saw like renders of this very tall sort of remote control-y looking phone. But somebody found one on eBay and got a hands on. I think this is the most interesting phone I've seen in years. And it also might be so stupid.
It looks so dumb.
Yeah. I love stupid tech. So I adore this thing. I don't understand how you would use it long term.
It's basically the best way I can describe it is like imagine two iPod Nanos stacked on top of each other. Yeah. But it's all screen. It's just a remote control, and it looks like it's basically just a bunch of widgets, which perhaps unsurprisingly makes me very excited. I love a good widget.
I think that my big call out for this one is that it was obviously made before TikTok was a thing.
No, but on this you could open TikTok on the bottom and then TikTok again on the top.
Little tiny TikTok.
Yeah. It'd be dope. I could make a TikTok and watch a TikTok all at exactly the same time.
I bet it would be really good for fidgeting, like just kind of flipping it around in your hand, the whole phone, because it's so long.
So,
It's true.
Like
if
a
you
pencil.
will recall, Essential's plan was to do ambient computing. They were going to put stuff in your house. The phone was just the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this really was just a remote control.
That's very possible. Yeah, that it was like they were making a home device. I wrote a whole thing about this back when I was at Wired, that their big plan was, like you said, to have, they were doing sort of an Alexa thing, but were promising to do it in a much more elegant way. And even just looking at some of the stuff here, it is very much like get quick information and see what's going on rather than like endlessly scroll on Instagram, which like I'd take that works. But I miss this thing where there were people asking questions about what size a phone was supposed to be, and now no, we've just decided that phones should be huge and leave weird divots in your pinky from trying to hold them.
Now, I'm going to say this isn't anything.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Sorry.
Well, it is
conclusively
objectively
is
not
not
anything. Yeah. Can I interest you in the tiny pod? Is this anything? Okay,
Which one? Which one?
Let me back this up. Instead, can I interest you in a little silicon case for your Apple Watch that gives it a scroll wheel that appears to just mechanically move the digital crown?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. Perfect.
I wish it wasn't $80.
No, that's the right price.
You wish it was more?
That's the price of hubris.
They have a version without the wheel for like $30.
Oh, come on.
And I'm just like, what's the point of that? Who wants that?
Okay, so I will just remind everyone that when the Apple Watch was launched, you can go back and watch this video. Bono was there. Mm-hmm. They built a tent at a community college in California. This is a real thing that happened. And they sat us all down, and they were like, with every new Apple product comes a revolutionary input device. Mm-hmm. You will recall the mouse. Here's Steve Jobs and a mouse. You will recall the click wheel on the iPod, the multi-touch on the iPhone. And now with the Apple Watch, the digital crown. And I just think a device that's like, no, actually click wheel. What if we just use a click wheel to turn the digital crown? Is perfect. I will pay $80 just for that.
Are you going to put your watch in it?
I have so many old Apple Watches. I feel like I can just shove one in here. It does look delightful. I don't know why they've exposed the heart rate sensors on the back. Like, are you supposed to hold it?
Just press it to your neck? Like, take your own pulse? No, okay, wait. I have one.
Oh, it's for charging. It's for charging.
Oh, sure. That makes sense.
That makes more sense.
My stupid usability question about this is the watch, every time you take it off, it locks. Like the way it authenticates is by staying on your body and then you turn it on. Are you going to have to enter your passcode every single time you want to touch this thing? Because that sounds awful.
I think you used to be able to disable.
Can you
the
turn that
watch.
off? Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to turn the watch stuff off. I never
Okay,
do.
if that's the case, I'm going to buy the hell out of this thing. Also, it will decimate the battery life because you are absolutely not supposed to actively use the watch very much. But I don't care. I'm going to use it.
Do it.
Yeah. Okay, this is something.
Love it.
I will say that between the weird Books Palma news cycle that you and Craig Mott have kicked off and the interest in these things, something's happening out there. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's measurable. I don't know if anyone's actually giving up their phone. But people are very much like, I'm sick of these rectangles. What about
I
dumber,
think
worse rectangles?
there is a moment of phone disintermediation that is happening that I think is very exciting. Let's see. Oh gosh, there's so many. Let's do the Dyson On-Track headphones.
This is nothing.
That's the first time I've said that name out loud. I don't like it.
It's not
The
On-Track.
On-Track?
Bad.
Dyson made very customizable headphones. That's cool. I'm super down.
And
with
they
that.
don't look like a Bane mask, which I would argue is a tremendous improvement.
And they cost $500.
Less improvement. Yeah, not as good.
Yeah. We're really curious to see how they work out. I know Chris Welch is going to probably review them, call them in, but yeah.
They do look cool. They're just expensive.
Did the Bane ones sound good? I don't remember.
They sounded okay, but this is giving real skull candy. And I don't know if that's a
kind of is.
derogatory skull candy or a positive. It's just skull candy.
It's a little derogatory. For $500, it's derogatory.
Yeah.
I think my issue with these, and I know people love Dyson products. I just want to sit on an airplane with headphones that say Dyson on them in this way.
Yeah. Also, there's no fan. Where is the fan?
Yeah, you've
What is
got
spinning?
one core technology, Dyson.
Gosh.
Yeah, okay. I want to. Maybe there's something, but I don't think there's anything.
So the way you just said, Nilay, Dyson in this way, it makes me think you like bring your vacuum on the plane and you're like happy to show that off, but you don't want to rep Dyson in this way.
That's what I'm saying. It's a very
Nilay with his
confusing.
air wrap styler,
It's
just like
if you
killing it
sat
on the
down
plane.
on an airplane, I don't know, and you like opened a box of food and had a Chevy logo. I'd be like, what is happening here? This makes no sense.
Yeah, I can give you
Yeah,
that.
that makes sense.
Yeah. I think Dyson just had a bunch of headphone parts left and just shipped them. That's my theory. Let's do last one, and then I have more. We could do this forever, but let's just do one last one, and then we should go. And I think it is the most is this anything of all the major phone companies right now, and it's that Google just leaked its own Pixel 9.
Yeah.
Google
Yeah.
was just like, here's the Pixel 9 Pro. Is this anything?
I like they asked.
I don't know. Yeah, that should be the title of the YouTube video. They're like, do you like this?
Well, they did this. Was it last year? Was it last year that they leaked the Pixel? Like,
Is this
way
a
early?
leak? Can we stop calling this a leak? They just posted it.
They just posted the phone.
Yeah.
That's
I
true.
mean, like a high-res photo. They're like, here it is.
Well,
No,
there's
it's
they did a video that just says introducing the Google Pixel 9 Pro. You're right. They just launched the damn phone.
That's not a leak.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah. They just were like, here it is for now.
The camera bump is outrageous.
It's huge.
What are we doing, guys?
Yeah,
The camera bump is like starting to be the size of a phone. Like that, the little Apple. What's the Apple Watch phone called?
Wait.
Tiny Pod.
The Tiny Pod. I'm curious if the Tiny Pod with the Apple Watch in it is as big as the bump on the.
Okay, so Pixel
9 Pro.
10, you make the bump removable,
That's what I was going to
and
say.
it's its own thing. Yeah, now we're talking.
Yeah.
See what I'm
Trans.
saying?
Now we're talking.
We just
That's the
did it.
good stuff.
We just did it. It's really like the whole story of this thing is going to be it runs Gemini fast. That's like it's very clear that is the whole sales pitch here.
Yeah. What else does Google have?
I do not find
and
that
do
a
people
compelling
want this?
sales pitch.
But I'm not convinced Gemini is doing all the things Google wants to do. We'll get to that later. But if that's the whole pitch here, it has to be good. And what have we learned about AI hardware? It's probably broken, and I don't believe you.
So yeah, we're gonna say that launch is August 13th, right? Mm-hmm. So TBD, but I'm gonna say tentatively it is not anything. We should take a break, but the last one is the OnePlus Pad 2 has a vibrating stylus, for reasons.
This isn't anything.
Okay.
You don't want your writing utensil to vibrate?
A linear motor inside that makes the tip vibrate to give you that feeling of a pen writing on paper. Because you know how your pen vibrates.
Yeah. That's what I expect.
I think we should do Is This Anything every week. This isn't anything.
This is great. Yeah. Okay. Great. That's it. We're done.
And scene.
The Tiny Pod, I think, is the big winner.
The already successful Apple Watch, now in a weirder case. That's something.
That's something.
All right. We'll be right back. All right. We're back. This is a complicated lightning round.
Yeah, we got a lot to do.
We do.
We have to deliver on the $27 million house that sucks. But I think we should close with that. So, David, you're going last.
Oh, I'm so excited. Okay.
I'll just start with my favorite, extremely silly story of the week. Comcast, investor in Vox Media, our parent company, they don't like me. And they don't like me because of the way I'm going to tell the following story. Comcast owns NBC, which has the Olympics, right?
Yes.
Comcast loves this because every year the Olympics is like a big deal for Comcast and NBC. They get all the programming. People are jumping, they're flipping, they're swimming. You know, the Olympics. And people
Those
watch
are the
it.
three things, typically. Yeah.
This
Big
year,
three.
this year they have breakdancing.
Yeah. Which is, to be fair, kind of jumping and
Yeah,
running. So
every
make it
Olympic
worse.
sport is one of those three: jumping, flipping, and swimming. As you know, sports in America are basically in 720p and have been forever because there's no competition for broadcast. Comcast is going to do the Olympics in 4K, but they're only going to do it. Comcast is going to do the Olympics in 4K, probably on Peacock, but probably like the horrible upscaled 4K that they do. Mm-hmm. If you have a Comcast cable box, you will get a high bitrate, low latency 4K feed of the Olympics.
Yeah.
So if you have an XI6, a She 6, I don't know what kind of cable box that is because I live here in the future. But if you have one of their cable boxes, you can get hi-fi audio and a 30 megabits per second low latency 4K stream of the Olympics, which sounds awesome. Frankly, that sounds awesome. It is just ridiculous that they're limiting it to their cable box, which they say they have to do because of their custom network, blah, 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 blah. There's absolutely no reason they have to do it this way.
Yeah, why didn't they put those resources into Peacock and letting Peacock do it?
I will say this is going to work for Comcast. Like the obvious move here is to get people who don't have this box but have a Comcast account to upgrade to this box. And it's going to work. Like the sporting events that make people go out and buy new higher res televisions, like it's the same push. It's going to work.
Are the Olympics that?
Yeah, dude, it's the Olympics. The Olympics are huge.
Sometimes.
So you get Dolby Vision, HDR, and Atmos immersive sound. And then channel 1350, which is USA 4K, will get the...
Wait, it's just the one channel? It's not all of the Olympics, it's just USA?
And then
So you get the
enhanced
Olympics
4K.
and Monk reruns.
Yes.
Congrats.
Yes.
It's 24/7 access to the national screen, the national stream.
Oh, that's worse. I take it back.
Never mind. Yeah.
Peacock.
Just Peacock's going to Peacock, they seem to have been doing a really smart design for it.
I got an email this morning telling me that my Peacock price is about to go up. And guess when my price changes? Oh, it's in the middle of the Olympics. Surprise.
You can
Great
test
job,
and
Peacock.
see if it which is better, with or without paid Peacock.
I am required to keep paid Peacock because it somehow has all my shows. We've talked about this.
This is true. I don't know why I
Yeah,
suggested that.
Peacock
to you. I'm
is
sorry.
weirdly like central to my day-to-day existence. But I try not to I try not to think too much about that because it just makes me sad.
You get all the Girls 5 ever though, so
I do like that.
If you have a compatible streaming device, you will get Dolby Vision, HDR, and Atmos, but you don't get the enhanced 4K. This is very complicated.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is Sony Pictures Core, the rebranded Sony Bravia Core that I have on my Sony TV, still showing me Madam Web at 80 megabits per second. The finest streaming experience you can have in America today. All right, Kranz, what's yours?
also 4K related because Sling TV is adding 4K streaming for free. Unlike everybody else who has charging
Where's
for
Sling on the Go 90 sale, would you say?
it. With this?
at least in the 70s.
Yeah, this is like a Hail Mary.
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
we'll
this is help. They've already done it once. They did it. They did a couple of days ago with the Fox Sports All-Star Game, and we all immediately went to social media to talk about watching 4K
Yeah, that was huge news. Everybody knew that.
on Sling TV and
Yeah.
on their Roku or Amazon Fire device. But they didn't, partially because it's pretty much limited to Sling Blue subscribers, because there's 2 versions of Sling. Only in a couple of major cities.
fully at an 80. They're fully at an 80. This is so complicated. I care about this so much, and it's so hard to understand what you're saying.
But if you're in Gainesville, Florida,
Yeah.
you can get it, and you don't have to pay extra.
Okay.
So
Sure.
it's
Big ups to Gainesville. I
Yeah.
will say, if you run a streaming service and you're out there, 4K streaming as a like free up service to keep people engaged is going to work. Someone needs to go out and just be the one that's like, yes, you can have 4K for no more money because we love you.
Besides
It
Sling,
will work. Sling did it for what sounds like 11 people. So great. I'm thrilled for those 11 people. Gainesville, I'm sure is happy rioting in the streets. Like, that's great. But this is a feature that could work. Like, this is the kind of thing that people want, and someone who wants their customers to be happy should give this to them.
Again, I have said many times, YouTube should just pay to produce all the games in 4K and then just have 4K games on YouTube TV.
Yeah.
And it's too like they have the money, and I'm pretty sure they will. It's Google. They're like, whatever. I think it's too complicated.
Yeah.
All right, David, bring us home.
Oh my God. Okay.
$27 million mansion that sucks.
This is the best news. So Sam Altman bought a house in 2020 for $27 million. That was, I don't know if it was when he bought it, but it was at least at one time the most expensive San Francisco real estate listing ever. And it sucked. And he sued, or his people, through a series of weird corporate things that is fighting another series of weird corporate things on the side of the developers, sued because basically they built him what his lawyers are alleging was a lemon of a $27 million house. This whole story is bananas. So the Architectural Digest made an 11-minute long video, I'll link it in the show notes, going through the house before it was sold. And the house it's not beautiful, but it's like incredible, if that makes sense. It has a gym, it has a massage room, it has a closet that is larger than most houses. It has
a wellness cottage, right?
It has a wellness cottage. Thank you. That's the phrase I was looking for. It has 3 ovens in the kitchen, which seems like one more than even like the very extravagant amount of ovens to have. But its real like show-stopping piece was this cantilevered infinity pool that kind of looked out over San Francisco. It's gorgeous. According to the lawsuit, the people who were building the house were involved in a bunch of like corporate and financial shenanigans that led to them doing a crappy job and not paying contractors, who then, as a sabotage move, did things like shove bags and debris into drains, which then clogged those drains, which did things like cause a ceiling to collapse in the gym in the house. It caused, there were like inches of standing water under some of the walkways. There was apparently mold everywhere. Let's see, what else do I have? Numerous leaking irrigation lines that were incorrectly installed on the rooftop garden. Failure of the tread lights in the exterior staircase, which were repaired but then failed again. Defects in the design and waterproofing of exterior planters, just over and over and over again. Big giant pool basically leaking into and rapidly destroying the rest of the house. And the estimates were that the price to fix all of this is going to be more than $4 million, which is a number for repairs that I cannot fathom. And so basically the lawsuit now is saying that Sam Altman was essentially duped into buying a $27 million piece of crap.
Who made it? Was it
so funny?
Was like D.R. Horton behind it? Because that just one of the other big builders.
Well, I'm just saying, sometimes you get duped into spending a lot of money on an engineering marvel that can't actually do all the things people say it can do. It's just one of those things. What if the capabilities of this cantilevered pool do not match with the staggering amount of hype that has come with said pool?
Do you think the pool helps you send like slightly better business emails?
The pool has already tried to have sex with Kevin Roos.
But yeah, I should say on the one hand,
I love you, Kevin.
on the one hand, like this sucks. I don't mean to like particularly make fun of Sam Altman. Like as somebody who just went through a much less expensive and problematic house renovation, this sucks. And like the idea of spending all of this money on a house and then basically discovering it is literally collapsing inside of itself, that sucks. I don't wish that on anybody. In another way, it's very funny.
The metaphor here is very good.
Yeah.
Also, he was just driving around like a $5 million Koenigsegg.
Yeah,
Right?
he's fine.
And the house is so ugly. Like, it's just like incredibly unattractive house. So good for him. He can go get it redone, like take his earnings from the lawsuit, make it look like a real house. It'll be great.
Yeah, it's just I would encourage everyone to go read the lawsuit. I'll link it. It's 38 pages, and the first like 10 pages are just explaining the structure of the company that built this house and how insane it was. And there was like they lost a $50 million judgment against them for other shoddy work that they did, and they were like the company was like running out of money, so they stopped funding their projects while also at the same time doing marketing about how like their whole thing was detail and 25% of their work went into things that the owner would never see because they just cared that much, and that's how it's $27 million.
I love it.
It's so funny. The whole thing is just like there will be a documentary about this, and I will watch every single second of it.
And the documentary will be made by Sora, and most of it will be lies. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
I'm excited. All right, we are way over. Like I said, it's already next week. It was next week at the end of the first segment.
Now
That's
it's
fine.
September.
Yeah.
The iPhones are here now. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Oh, no. All right, we got to go. But before we do, I just want to call it one story on the site that's incredible. If you're an old head gadget blogger like me, Sean Hollister and John Porter wrote about the Stream Deck, the Elgato Stream Deck, and where it came from, which is this legendary gadget blogger obsession, the Art Lebedev Optimus keyboard. It turns out, by the way, Art Lebedev turned into like a very weird, hard-right Russian nationalist, which we had to add to the story, which was not what I wanted out of this very innocent story about the Stream Deck. But that is such as 2024. But if you were like me, you're like reading and writing gadget blogs like 20 years ago, this keyboard just kept coming up as the thing everybody wanted. And it turns out the company that made the actual displays kept going, and that turned into the Stream Deck. And it's just like a winding tale of some people really believing that keys should light up. And I love it. And the design is incredible. So go read that. And then we have just tons and tons of stories on this. It was a great week on the site, actually. And then I promise you, we'll moderate the politics, but they're here. So just get ready. It's election year.
And I will say and everybody should hold us to this. I want to spend a lot of time talking about like policy and less talking about like horse race shenanigans. Of
what did the poll say today?
Yeah. So like hold us to that. And that is the thing we're going to try to do, because this stuff matters a lot and it matters right now. But we also don't need to spend a lot of time like ranting and raving about who said what on the campaign trail. And we will not.
That's for our other show, 24/7 Politics Verge, which you can watch on Roku devices tomorrow. All right, that's it. That's the Vergecast. Rock and roll.
And that's it for the Vergecast this week. Hey, we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call at 866-VERGE11. The Vergecast is a production of the Verge and Vox Media Podcast Network. Our show is produced by Andrew Marino and Liam James. That's it. We'll see you next week.